Love at its best is meant to be a safe space, a place where two people can exist freely without the need to compete, prove, or measure up. But sometimes, without warning, that safety begins to erode. It doesn't happen with betrayal or shouting matches. It happens quietly, in the pauses between conversations, in the tone of admiration when they talk about someone else, in the faint disappointment when you don't do things their way. That's how comparison enters a relationship, softly, invisibly, but powerfully enough to leave cracks where trust once lived. Being compared to someone else, an ex, a coworker, a friend, or even a stranger, is one of the most subtle yet damaging experiences in love. It tells you without words that who you are might not be enough. The worst part? It rarely starts with bad intentions. Maybe your partner admires someone's drive, or casually mentions how a friend handles conflict better, or praises another couple's relationship. At first it seems normal, but slowly, those moments add up, and what used to feel like a partnership begins to feel like a performance. Comparison is a silent poison. It changes how your partner sees you, but even more dangerously, it changes how you see yourself. You start second-guessing everything: how you speak, how you look, how you love. You wonder, am I being myself, or am I trying to be their version of perfect? The answer, more often than not, is painful. When someone keeps comparing, they're not truly present in the relationship. Their mind is half in the past, half in fantasy. Maybe they're haunted by an ex they never fully let go of, or inspired by people they think are living a better life. But either way, the result is the same. You start losing emotional safety. And love cannot survive without safety. The truth is, every healthy relationship requires acceptance, not perfection. No two people are meant to be identical, and no real love thrives by imitation. Yet in today's world, where social media floods us with ideal couples and endless examples of how love should look, comparison becomes almost instinctive. But what's forgotten in that chase is that love isn't a competition. It's a connection. If your partner's affection feels inconsistent, if their tone shifts after seeing certain people, or if their words make you question your worth, those are not random mood swings. They're hidden signs of comparison, and recognizing them is the first step toward reclaiming your peace. This piece dives into 15 hidden signs they're comparing you to someone else. The subtle, emotional, often overlooked behaviors that reveal when love has stopped being about you two and started being about you versus someone else. Because the hardest truth in relationships is this: once comparison begins, love doesn't end immediately. It fades quietly, until one of you finally notices the silence where admiration used to be. They often mention their ex in casual conversations. When your partner frequently brings up their ex in everyday conversations, it's more than just a passing memory. It's a window into their emotional landscape. Sometimes it's subtle. They might reference how their ex used to cook, travel, or handle situations, as if drawing an invisible comparison between you and them. Other times it's more direct, like praising their ex's habits or choices in contrast to yours. This habit can reveal that they haven't completely detached from that past connection. Instead of focusing on who you are, they may still be measuring your actions through the lens of someone else's influence. It's not always intentional or malicious. People often cling to familiarity, especially when they're not fully healed. But repeated mentions of an ex can slowly erode your confidence, making you feel like you're competing with a ghost. Emotionally, this can be draining. You start questioning if you're enough or if you're just a replacement for what they lost. The truth is, when someone constantly brings their ex into current discussions, they're not living fully in the present relationship. Love requires emotional space, and if that space is still occupied by someone from their past, there's no room for new growth. The key isn't confrontation, but awareness. Notice how often it happens, in what context, and how it makes you feel. Healthy love looks forward, but not backward, too. They compare your habits to someone else's better way of doing things. When your partner starts comparing your everyday habits to someone else's better way of doing things, it's often a subtle but painful form of emotional invalidation. Maybe they say things like, "My friend always plans things perfectly," or, "You should see how my coworker keeps their place so organized." At first it might sound harmless, even motivational. But over time it sends a deeper message. You're not enough as you are. What makes this kind of comparison hurtful is that it undermines individuality. Every person has their own rhythm, their own way of cooking, working, cleaning, communicating, or expressing love. When those natural habits are constantly compared to someone else's, you begin to feel like you're being graded instead of appreciated. It creates quiet insecurity, where love starts feeling conditional, based on how closely you can match another person's standards. Most of the time, these comparisons aren't even about you. They reflect your partner's inner dissatisfaction or nostalgia. They might be chasing an ideal image, not realizing that they're slowly damaging the emotional safety that real relationships thrive on. If this behavior continues, resentment grows. You start second-guessing yourself, trying to change in ways that don't feel authentic. The healthiest response is honest communication. Tell them how these comparisons make you feel unseen. True love doesn't want you to be better like someone else. It wants you to be fully yourself, and still deeply valued for it. Their compliments feel like backhanded comparisons. A genuine compliment uplifts you. It makes you feel seen, appreciated, and loved for who you are. But when a compliment is followed by a subtle comparison, it leaves a sting that lingers far longer than the praise. For example, your partner might say, "You look great today," almost like how Emma dresses for work, or "You're improving. My ex used to do it this way too." On the surface, it sounds kind, but beneath it lies a quiet judgment. You're good, but not quite good enough. This type of backhanded compliment reveals that your partner's mind may still be anchored in comparison mode, consciously or not. It's as if they can't separate appreciation from evaluation. Instead of celebrating your individuality, they use someone else as the benchmark for your worth. Over time, this can erode self-confidence and create emotional distance, especially if you start anticipating that every bit of praise will come with a hidden but. People who give such mixed compliments often don't realize the harm they cause. They may think they're encouraging improvement, but in reality, they're planting seeds of insecurity. A relationship should be a space of emotional safety, a place where you can grow without feeling constantly measured. Healthy love says, "I appreciate you for who you are." It doesn't compare, compete, or condition affection on external standards. True compliments aren't meant to motivate change. They're meant to affirm genuine value. Pump 4. They bring up someone's achievements whenever you share yours. When you finally share something you're proud of, a work milestone, a new skill, or even a small personal win, you expect your partner to smile, to celebrate you. But instead they respond with, "That's great. You know, Sarah just got promoted too." Or, "My cousin did that last year and even won an award for it." Suddenly, your excitement deflates, replaced by a quiet sense of inadequacy. This habit reveals more than just thoughtless conversation. It's often rooted in subtle emotional competition or comparison. Rather than being fully present in your joy, your partner shifts the focus elsewhere, often to someone who, in their eyes, did it better. Over time, this dynamic can make you hesitant to share your wins at all. You start shrinking your moments of pride because they never feel safe in their presence. In a healthy relationship, your success should feel like their success too. A supportive partner celebrates your growth without turning it into a scoreboard. When they constantly mention others' achievements in response to yours, it may signal insecurity, a need to keep balance or control by minimizing your shine. The truth is, love isn't about comparison. It's about connection. When one person grows, both should feel lifted. If your victories are met with someone else's story, it's not your ambition that needs changing. It's the emotional maturity of the person who can't simply say, "I'm proud of you." They seem disappointed when you act differently from their expectations. 1. Of the quietest but most painful forms of comparison happens when your partner looks disappointed, not because you did something wrong, but because you did something your way. Maybe you made a decision they wouldn't have made, dressed in a style they didn't expect, or reacted to a situation differently than they imagined. Instead of curiosity or acceptance, you notice a sigh, a subtle frown, or a quiet withdrawal, as if you've failed an invisible test. This behavior often means they've created an internal version of who they want you to be, a reflection of an ideal, an ex, or even someone they admire. Every time you act outside that mold, they compare you to that version and feel disappointed that reality doesn't match fantasy. The danger is, this silent disappointment starts shaping your behavior. You begin to overthink, to adjust, to shrink, all in hopes of earning their approval again. But love built on expectation isn't love, it's performance. True intimacy comes when your partner embraces the real you, your spontaneity, your flaws, your quirks, and your unique way of thinking. When someone genuinely loves you, differences don't disappoint them. They intrigue them. They don't see deviation as disobedience. They see it as depth. If your partner's affection feels conditional on how closely you meet their imagined version of you, remember, love that requires imitation isn't love at all. It's control disguised as care. They use phrases like, "You're not like them," too often. At first, being told, "You're not like them," can sound flattering, as if your partner sees something special in you. But when that phrase keeps resurfacing, it can carry a hidden undertone of comparison. It suggests that your value is being defined against someone else, not for who you truly are. Instead of appreciation, it becomes a subtle ranking system, where you're either better than or less than the invisible them. Maybe they say things like, "You're not like my ex, she was emotional," or "You're not like my friends' partners, they don't care as much." At first, it sounds like praise, but over time it places you under constant evaluation. You start wondering, what happens if I ever become like them? That anxiety can push you to maintain a version of yourself that fits their comfort zone rather than your truth. People who use this phrase often compare unconsciously. They may still be holding on to old experiences or measuring relationships through past pain. The problem is, it keeps you trapped in someone else's shadow. Instead of being seen as an individual, you become part of their mental checklist of comparisons. Real love doesn't need to contrast you with others to appreciate your worth. It doesn't say, "You're not like them." It says, "You are you," and that's enough. Because genuine affection celebrates individuality, not difference. They change their preferences after seeing someone else do it. It's normal for people to evolve, to be inspired, to grow, to adopt new habits. But when your partner's preferences shift every time someone else does something, it's not growth, it's imitation. Maybe they suddenly start liking a new fashion style after seeing a friend wear it, or they change their opinions about travel, hobbies, or even relationships after hearing how someone else does it. Better, you start noticing a pattern. Their choices seem less about what they love and more about keeping up with others. This constant shift can feel unsettling because it suggests that their sense of identity and even their appreciation of you is influenced by outside comparisons. One day they admire your simplicity. The next, they crave extravagance because someone they know has it. It creates a silent competition you never signed up for. When a person is deeply secure, their preferences grow from self-awareness, not imitation. But when they're insecure or emotionally unfulfilled, they tend to chase validation through copying what looks ideal. Unfortunately, that also means they might begin expecting you to adapt to those new standards, dressing differently, behaving differently, or living up to the lifestyle of someone else. True connection thrives in authenticity. If someone's desires constantly shift depending on what others have, they're not really building a life with you. They're building a reflection of everyone they envy. And in that reflection, your individuality slowly disappears unless you draw the line and stay true to yourself. They subtly push you to dress or behave a certain way. It often starts innocently. "You'd look better if you wore something like this," or "You should try acting more confident, like her." At first it might sound like harmless advice or even care, but over time you begin to realize these suggestions have a pattern. They're slowly reshaping how you dress, talk, or behave, not because it makes you feel good, but because it fits someone else's image they have in mind. When a partner subtly pushes you to change your style or behavior, it's often a sign that they're comparing you to others, consciously or not. They might be trying to mold you into a version that mirrors someone they admire, envy, or even miss. It's rarely about improvement. It's about control disguised as guidance. And the scariest part is how easily it can make you doubt your natural self. You start asking yourself, would they still find me attractive if I didn't follow their advice? That's how emotional manipulation hides behind compliments. "I just want you to look your best" becomes code for "I want you to look how I prefer." True love doesn't require transformation to meet someone else's aesthetic. It celebrates your authenticity and your natural laugh, your comfortable clothes, your genuine quirks. A partner who loves you will never sculpt you to fit their fantasy. They'll fall deeper for who you already are, not for who they want to turn you into. They idealize people from their past or social circle. When your partner frequently speaks about certain people, an ex, a friend, a coworker, with constant admiration or nostalgia, it can reveal something deeper than mere appreciation. Maybe they say things like, "He always knew how to handle things," or "She just had everything together." At first, it may seem like harmless respect, but repeated idealization of others slowly creates emotional distance between you and them. You start feeling like you're being compared to an invisible standard, one you never agreed to compete. With idealization often happens when someone romanticizes their past or the people in it to escape dissatisfaction in the present. They forget the flaws, remember only the highlights, and project those memories as perfection. When your partner does this, they're not seeing people as they were. They're seeing them as symbols of what they wish they still had. That turns you into a replacement rather than a real partner. Over time, this behavior can make you feel like you're living under someone else's shadow, constantly trying to measure up to a version of perfect that never truly existed. It's emotionally exhausting, especially when your efforts to connect are met with silent comparisons to people long gone. A healthy relationship lives in the now. It acknowledges the past, but doesn't glorify it. When someone truly loves you, they don't look backward with longing. They look forward with gratitude, knowing the person beside them is more than enough. Great. They get defensive when you call out their comparisons. When you gently point out that your partner keeps comparing you to others, maybe an ex, a friend, or someone online, you expect understanding, maybe even reflection, but instead they become defensive. "You're overreacting. I was just mentioning it. You're too sensitive." These are the classic shields people use when they don't want to face uncomfortable truths. Defensiveness in this context usually means one thing. They know they're comparing, but they don't want to take accountability. Admitting it would mean acknowledging that they've hurt you, that they've allowed someone else's shadow into your relationship. So instead, they twist the narrative, making you feel like you're the one who's insecure, jealous, or imagining things. This emotional reversal is subtle but powerful. It invalidates your feelings while allowing them to continue their behavior unchecked. Over time, their defensiveness can make you stop speaking up altogether. You begin walking on emotional eggshells, afraid that expressing your pain will be turned into an argument about your overthinking. That silence slowly kills trust and intimacy, leaving resentment to take root. A mature partner listens, reflects, and validates. They may not see their behavior at first, but they'll want to understand its impact. A defensive one protects their ego, not your heart. In the end, real love isn't proven by who wins the argument. It's proven by who's willing to change. Once they realize they've caused pain. They admire others in areas where they once praised you. It's a quiet kind of heartbreak. Noticing your partner now praises others for the very qualities they once loved most about you. Maybe they used to admire your creativity, your calmness, or your ambition. But lately, their compliments have shifted. "Mark is so focused on his goals," or "I love how Sarah handles things with grace." Suddenly, the traits that once made you special are being applauded in someone else. This shift isn't always intentional, but it reveals emotional drift. When admiration moves away from you toward others, it often means their focus and emotional energy is doing the same. They might be seeking excitement, novelty, or validation outside the relationship, using comparisons to justify their growing detachment. For you, it feels like slow erosion. 1,000 small moments where your worth, once celebrated, becomes overlooked. It also creates confusion. You start wondering, what changed? Did I stop being enough, or did they stop seeing me? The truth is, nothing may be wrong with you at all. Sometimes people get restless, romanticize what they don't have, and forget the beauty of what's already theirs. In healthy love, admiration deepens, not relocates. A loyal partner continues to recognize your light, even when the world offers new distractions. Real affection doesn't wander to other people's qualities. It looks at you and says, "You're still the reason I smile, even when the world changes." They seem emotionally distant after meeting certain people. You can feel it instantly. the subtle change in energy. Before they met that friend, coworker, or old classmate, they were warm, talkative, and present. Afterward, something shifts. Their eyes drift more often, their responses get shorter, their affection fades into silence. They haven't said anything hurtful, but their emotional presence feels elsewhere. It's not coincidence, it's emotional comparison at work. When someone becomes distant after interacting with certain people, it often means they've subconsciously started measuring the relationship. Maybe that person reminded them of a past connection, or embodied qualities they now feel are missing in you, or even in themselves. Rather than addressing that discomfort, they withdraw, leaving you to sense the tension without explanation. This kind of emotional absence hurts deeply because it's invisible but heavy. You start replaying moments wondering if you did something wrong, when in truth they're battling their own internal comparison. The distance you feel isn't rejection, it's reflection. They're comparing, and they don't know how to process it without guilt. Healthy love requires awareness. Emotional attraction to others is human, but detachment from your partner because of comparison is a choice. When someone truly values you, meeting others doesn't create distance, it strengthens appreciation. They may admire others, but they always return more certain of what they already have. Because real connection doesn't waver in the presence of new faces. It deepens with loyalty in the old ones. They question your choices more than before. It starts subtly, a raised eyebrow when you make a decision, a teasing comment about your taste, a quiet, "Are you sure that's the best idea?" Over time, these small remarks add up. You notice your partner questioning everything, how you dress, what you order, the way you handle situations, things they once admired as confident or unique. It feels like they're no longer trusting your judgment, but testing it. When this shift happens, it often means comparison has entered the relationship. They've seen how someone else does things, a friend, a coworker, an ex, and now your way seems less right. The tragedy is, it's rarely about the choices themselves. It's about an internal recalibration in their mind, where you're no longer the standard, just another point of reference. This behavior can chip away at your self-assurance. You begin to hesitate before speaking or deciding, wondering if you'll be subtly criticized again. It's an emotional imbalance disguised as concern. What once felt like partnership starts to feel like an evaluation. True love doesn't question to belittle, it questions to understand. A caring partner may challenge you, but they'll never make you feel small for being yourself. When someone constantly doubts your decisions, they're not trying to help. They're trying to mold you into their version of better. But in love, the goal isn't to be better than someone else, it's to be real together, exactly as you are. Teen, they avoid acknowledging your uniqueness. One of the most painful signs of comparison is when your partner stops recognizing what makes you special. In the beginning, they might have loved your quirks, your sense of humor, your unusual way of thinking, the little things that made you you. But over time, those same qualities become invisible, or worse, inconvenient. They stop saying, "I love that about you," and start treating your individuality like background noise. This shift often happens when someone begins idealizing external standards, people they admire, or lifestyles they wish they had. They start chasing normal, perfect, or Instagram-ready, forgetting that real connection thrives in imperfection. Your uniqueness becomes something they tolerate, not celebrate. And the tragedy is you start to notice. You begin dimming parts of yourself, speaking less passionately, laughing more quietly, trying to blend into the mold they seem to prefer. But love that asks you to shrink isn't love. It's comparison disguised as care. When someone truly loves you, your individuality isn't a flaw to be managed. It's a gift to be cherished. They see your differences as depth, not deviation. Avoidance of your uniqueness is emotional distance in disguise. It means they've stopped seeing you and started seeing who they think you should be. But the right partner never overlooks your essence. They remind you of it. They don't mute your colors. They make you feel safe, enough to shine in every shade you are on 15. Their love feels conditional, based on how close you are to their ideal. This is the most painful stage of comparison, when love starts to feel like a performance, not a partnership. You notice that their warmth, affection, or approval seems to fluctuate, depending on how closely you match the image they have in their mind. When you meet their expectations, dressing how they like, agreeing with their opinions, behaving the right way. They're affectionate and kind. But the moment you drift from that ideal, their tone changes. The love feels colder, the silence heavier. It's subtle but unmistakable. You start feeling graded instead of loved. Their affection becomes a reward for compliance, not an expression of connection. And soon you begin editing yourself, suppressing opinions, adjusting your personality, even compromising values, just to keep the peace, just to feel loved again. But love that demands constant shape-shifting isn't love. It's control cloaked in approval. People who love conditionally often do so out of insecurity. They chase perfection because they fear vulnerability. But by doing so, they turn relationships into competitions, measuring worth, not sharing warmth. Real love, however, has no checklist. It doesn't vanish when you fail to be ideal. It deepens because you're real. True affection says, "You don't have to earn my love. Just be yourself." And that's enough. Because the strongest relationships aren't built on meeting expectations. They're built on being accepted, even when you fall short of them.